Young man, please save my wife. In the middle of the night, I saw a yellow weasel, bigger than 3 grown men, kneeling right by my bed. I'm 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐫𝐞𝐚. I used to be a chief surgeon. But right now, I was so terrified I wanted to hide under the covers and cry for my mom. I stared into its round, glowing eyes, my voice trembling. Boss, I'm a surgeon who wields a scalpel. I don't deliver babies. You've got the wrong guy. This yellow weasel, his name is Huang Da. He was so anxious he kept kowtowing. The villagers all say you're incredibly skilled. Please, save my wife and children. I'll work like a horse for you. Seeing him on the verge of tears, the trauma in my heart flared up again. Half a month ago, that 25-year-old young man, when he died on my operating table, his family begged me just like this. Ever since then, the moment I see a scalpel, my hands shake like I have Parkinson's. I turned my face away. I looked out the window and said, I'm not a doctor anymore. Just go. I kicked Huang Da out and slammed the door shut. But there was no sound outside. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind filled with images of the deceased patient and the curses of his family. The feeling of a sleepless night was truly unbearable. If no one steps in, that mother and her babies are really going to die. The moment this thought crossed my mind, I couldn't help myself. I opened the door again. Huang Da hadn't left. He was slumped on the ground. Seeing me come out, his round eyes lit up like 2 little light bulbs. Hurry up, bring your wife into my yard. My little cabin in the woods is a typical northern folk house. The room had a faint smell of disinfectant mixed with old wood. I quickly spread a clean, sterile drape over the table, turning it into a makeshift clinic. Just as Huang Da rushed in, carrying his wife, the female weasel's belly was swollen huge. She didn't even have the strength to cry out anymore, trembling all over from the pain. Outside, the tree shadows swaying against the paper windows made me feel uneasy. I was completely panicked, but my professional instinct forced me to stay calm. I pulled out the surgical kit I had tucked away. I sterilized the fur on her belly. I called my old roommate, who worked in the obstetrics department. He groggily picked up the phone on the other end. I quickly explained the situation. With his remote guidance, I finally felt a bit of confidence. Listen closely. I have to operate on your wife. Life and death are up to fate. It's in heaven's hands now. I took a deep breath and picked up the scalpel. Under the dim light, my hands uselessly started shaking again. In that moment, I felt like I was back on that operating table. I made an incision on the skin. Strangely, wisps of black smoke seeped out from the cut. It was bone-chillingly cold. I didn't have the mind to care about that, just staring intently at the bleeding point. Forcing myself to steady the blade, I operated swiftly and cleanly. Just a few minutes later, several tiny, soaking wet creatures dropped into the basin. Huang Da's wife finally let out a heavy breath and gave a weak cry. 3 warm little lives welcomed the first rays of morning sunlight as they came into the world. Mother and babies were safe. Huang Da was so happy he burst into tears. He hurriedly licked his wife and kids clean. I took off my blood-stained gloves, looking at my hands that had finally stopped shaking. The heavy burden that had weighed on my heart for the past half-month finally lightened a bit. I walked out to the balcony and saw dawn was breaking. I immediately called my old classmate to report that mother and babies were safe. I think I can hold a scalpel again. Are you really planning to stay in that middle of nowhere for the rest of your life? I looked at the residual blood under my fingernails. I stayed silent. Hey 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐿, in our profession as doctors, saving lives is our duty. But sometimes, this thing called fate really isn't something we can stop. After that incident, I've always been worried. In this line of work, we witness life and death every day. You can't just expect life without death. Everyone has their own destiny. I know. So, are you planning to come back? I looked at the lingering morning light on the horizon and instinctively fell silent. Sigh, I was just asking casually. To be honest, I want to quit this damn job too. I'm busy as a dog every single day. I don't know what kind of bad luck I hit today. There are so many pregnant women I can't even schedule them all. Hanging up the phone, I looked at the sun that had already risen high and went back inside. Huang Da and his family were still resting in the makeshift nest I built. I gathered some dry grass from the corner of the yard, sprinkled some disinfectant powder, and let their family of 5 stay there temporarily. 2 days later, just as the sun came up, my grandma was already shouting outside the door. She pointed at a pheasant. It was dead, its neck snapped, lying by the door. She asked me curiously, "Xuan, come out and look at this. Where did this pheasant come from?" I glanced along the base of the courtyard wall. And sure enough, I saw a little head poking out from behind the millstone. 𝐒𝐤𝐲 was looking at me expectantly with his round eyes. His tail was even wagging instinctively. Probably someone giving a gift and got the wrong house. Grandma looked at me and smiled. Giving a gift and just leaving it right at the gate. If no one claims it, we'll cook it up. This bird is really plump. Every day when I opened the door, there would always be a pheasant at the gate, sometimes even a fat field mouse. After eating pheasant for 3 days straight, now even my burps smelled like chicken feathers. I couldn't take it anymore. I deliberately stopped 𝐒𝐤𝐲 and told him not to gift any more chickens. I'm sick of eating them. 𝐒𝐤𝐲 tilted his head in thought, looking like he understood. The next day, the raw meat smell at the door was gone, replaced by a pile of wild fruits, bright red and still covered in morning dew, laid out neatly. Xuan, is that the great immortal 𝐒𝐤𝐲? I saw him a few days ago. These things, they're definitely paying us rent, probably. I gotta say, these little critters are really spiritual. How could they not be? Not only do they know how to pay rent, they even know how to speak human. In the following days, 𝐒𝐤𝐲 was very spiritual. He left early and came back late every day, and the gifts became diverse and abundant. From wild fruits and mushrooms to all sorts of unnamed medicinal herbs. Under my care, 𝐒𝐤𝐲's wife's wound healed very quickly. Before long, she could lead her babies crawling all over the place. Finally, one afternoon, 𝐒𝐤𝐲 brought his whole family to say goodbye to me, saying they had to return to the forest behind the mountain. Sending off these special patients, my life finally returned to peace. However, the peaceful days didn't last long. On a night with a dim moon and sparse stars, the familiar knocking sound echoed again. I thought 𝐒𝐤𝐲 had come back to give more gifts. I reluctantly went to open the door. I told you I'm not collecting rent. Before I could finish, I froze. Outside the door wasn't 𝐒𝐤𝐲, but a wall of fiery red fur. It was a massive creature, over 2 meters tall. Its entire coat gleamed a deep red under the moonlight. A pair of emerald green eyes glowed like 2 little nightlights. I shuddered in terror. Its giant shadow completely engulfed my body. The heavy, oppressive presence almost made me collapse on the spot. I didn't dare move a muscle. My mind was screaming, "Save me! This monster could swallow 3 people whole in 1 bite." But the giant beast spoke first. "Are you the miracle doctor who saved the 𝐒𝐤𝐲 family?" I trembled, not daring to answer. "It's speaking human." The monster lowered its head. My gaze followed its eyes downward. I saw that under its massive paw, it was pinning down a tiny, shivering creature. Looking closely, it was 𝐒𝐤𝐲, who had just left a few days ago. I regained a bit of composure. "What do you want with me?" The monster didn't answer. Instead, it opened its blood-red maw, revealing 2 rows of terrifying fangs. My heart nearly stopped from fear. I'm done for. It's going to eat me. Before I could even scream, my feet suddenly felt light. My whole body was lifted off the ground. It tossed me onto its back like tossing a little chick, and casually grabbed 𝐒𝐤𝐲 too. I was still dazed, buried in the red fur on its back. Hold on tight. Right after that, the red-furred monster dashed off like the wind, carrying me deep into the forest behind the mountain. The biting cold wind whipped painfully against my face. My limbs went numb. I could only cling tightly to its red fur. Lying on its back, I shakily asked 𝐒𝐤𝐲 beside me what was going on. 𝐒𝐤𝐲 was terrified too. He answered in a trembling voice. "𝐶𝐶 suddenly barged into my house and forced me to lead the way to find you. Said it was an emergency, Q. This red-furred fox is named 𝐶𝐶. As we ran, we passed an abandoned mountain shrine. It hadn't seen visitors in ages, its walls half collapsed. Under the silvery moonlight, I saw a headless deity statue on the altar. The clay head had fallen to the ground at some point, now lying tilted to one side, its hollow eyes staring blankly in the direction we were heading. That sight sent chills down my spine. I clung to 𝐶𝐶's broad back, my whole body jolting with its running rhythm. Amidst the red fur, the cold wind seeped into my collar. I felt like my bones were about to fall apart from this terrifying speed. I don't know how long we ran. 𝐶𝐶 finally slowed down. The surrounding air lacked the stench of rotting leaves and dead branches. Instead, there was a refreshing, crisp scent, like expensive agar wood mixed with the smell of mountain weeds. In the darkness, emerald green eyes lit up like will-o'-the-wisps, accompanied by whispering voices. "Why did 𝐶𝐶 bring a 2-legged creature back here? This human looks so pale and tender. Must be delicious. Is Q crazy? He dares bring a human into the sacred grounds?" My heart skipped a beat. Did he just bring me straight into a fox demon's lair? I'm doomed, Lu Xuan. This time you're not here to save a life. You're here as a food delivery. Qiqiu ignored the chatter and dragged me further ahead, until we stopped in front of a massive cave. He lowered his body so I could climb down, and spoke into the cave with a deep voice. I found someone who can save Big Brother from deep within the cave. Several foxes of different coat colors slowly walked out. The one leading the pack was even larger than Qiqiu, exuding an inviolable, majestic aura. What made my eyes nearly pop out of my head was, behind her, there were 3 long, bushy tails, swaying gently in the air. The pressure was so intense my calves were trembling. This was Qiqiu's mother, and the leader of this pack, Qing-Yi. Surrounded by a pack of giant foxes, my long-gone megalophobia suddenly flared up again. Those emerald green eyes. Qing-Yi stared at me unblinking, silent as an ancient statue. The cold sweat on my back dried, and then got wet again. The surrounding foxes suddenly started murmuring, arguing fiercely. Big Brother is so badly injured. How could a human possibly heal him? Why don't we just eat him while he's fresh? Let's eat him. That was a reddish-brown fox with a ferocious face. Qiqiu called him second brother. What if he can heal him? Didn't that kid from the Huang family say this human has real skills? This was another gray fox. Looking much calmer, the 2 factions of foxes argued until they were red in the face. No one cared about my life or death. The person involved. What the hell do you know? You're the one who knows nothing. You're the ignorant one. No, you don't know, I was screaming internally. Bosses, can you just give me a straight answer? Are you gonna braise me or make me into soup? Stop arguing over my end-of-life care, damn it. Just as my brain was about to short-circuit, Qing-Yi, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke. Her voice was deep and elegant, yet carried the intimidating authority of an alpha. Human. Look up. I reflexively raised my chin, meeting those emerald eyes as deep as the ocean. That kid Huangda said, you cut open his wife's belly and saved a whole litter of pups. Is that true? I nodded frantically. My throat was too dry to speak. Qing-Yi asked slowly, using the methods of you humans, right? I kept nodding. Like a sewing machine. Qing-Yi fell into a long silence. Her massive fox head lowered slightly, seeming to weigh the pros and cons. The air felt stagnant, so heavy it was hard to breathe. Second brother saw Qing-Yi hesitating and let out an impatient growl from his throat. His drool was about to drip onto my shoes. Buddy, could you mind your manners a bit? You're a fox immortal after all. Show some class, old 9. Bring him inside. Qing-Yi finally gave the order. Qiqiu breathed a sigh of relief. Second brother wasn't having it. Mother, do you really trust this human? What if he pulls some trick during the surgery? Qing-Yi shot him a cold glare. Second brother, if your brain was even half as active as your mouth, you wouldn't still be unable to take human form. Second brother shut up instantly. Feeling wronged, he curled up in a corner and played with his tail. I followed Qiqiu into the cave. Huangda scrambled along behind us, whispering softly, Miracle Doctor, don't be afraid. Lady Qing-Yi and her children are very reasonable. Their reason probably means, if I cure him, I'm a miracle doctor. If I don't, I'm an appetizer. Stepping into the cave, the sight amazed me. It wasn't dark inside at all. The stone walls were covered in glowing moss, illuminating the cave as bright as day. A strange scent permeated the air, the musky smell of wild beasts mixed with incredibly expensive agarwood. The deeper we went, the metallic stench of blood and the smell of rot became heavier. In the widest stone chamber, I met their big brother, Bai Chen. He was an astonishingly large white fox, lying weakly on a stone slab. His fur, originally as white as silk, was now stained with patches of dark red blood. The most horrifying part was one of his front legs. It was bent at a grotesque angle, twisted unnaturally against the joint. The wound was deep and gaping, and even stranger, wisps of black smoke were seeping out of the wound. This is dark, malevolent energy. I only took one look, and my professional instinct overpowered my fear. My eyebrows furrowed tightly. Big brother Qiqiu rushed over, gently nudging Bai Chen's nose. Bai Chen forced his golden eyes open, letting out a weak breath. He couldn't even make a sound. I stepped forward and crouched down to examine the wound. Second brother jumped out again, blocking my way. What are you trying to do? Move. I didn't bother paying attention to him, looking straight at Qiqiu. I need to observe the wound up close. Otherwise, I can't determine if he can be saved. Qiqiu growled at second brother. Second brother reluctantly stepped aside. His gaze was like looking at a quack doctor who could commit murder at any moment. I put on the last pair of sterile gloves from my medical kit and gently brushed aside the matted fur around Bai Chen's wound. Right then, a chilling, gloomy aura shot straight from my fingertips to my brain. It was so cold, I shivered. In the center of the deep wound, there was a scale, pitch black, the size of a palm, embedded deep. Its edges were sharp as a knife. The surrounding muscle tissue was completely necrotic and blackened, spreading outward along with the black smoke. What exactly injured him? My voice trembled slightly. Not out of fear, but out of shock at this bizarre wound. Qiqiu's eyes went bloodshot. It was Heiyan, that vicious eagle. He used this demonic scale to ambush my brother. I understood now. This wasn't a normal laceration. This was a complex wound caused by the dark energy on the scale, causing an infection, preventing the wound from healing naturally, and acting like a corrosive acid, constantly draining his life force. The situation was worse than I thought. I took a deep breath. To be honest, the toxin and dark energy have already spread. If we wait another half hour, this leg can't be saved, and his life will be in grave danger. The atmosphere in the cave instantly dropped to freezing. Dozens of pairs of fox eyes stared at me simultaneously. Qingyi had silently appeared behind me at some point. Her massive shadow enveloped me. How confident are you? My mind was racing. Clean the wound. Excise the necrotic tissue. Remove the dark energy. According to modern medical logic, as long as the source of infection is removed and combined with spiritual purification, there's a chance. But the problem was, I was dealing with an abnormal patient. Moreover, my damn hand tremors were acting up again. I clenched my fists, trying to make my voice sound steadier. I have to operate, extract the scale, and scrape away all the dead flesh. Risk is extremely high. I don't have anesthetics suitable for this size. He'll have to endure it. Furthermore, I need absolutely clean hot water, hemostatic herbs, and the sharpest blade. Whatever you need, I can provide. But if you fail... Qingyi stared at me, her gaze feeling like it could pierce through my soul. She didn't finish the sentence, but I knew the foxes outside were already lining up, getting ready for lunch. I smiled bitterly. If I fail, I don't plan on leaving this cave alive anyway. I looked at Bai Chen on the stone slab. He was looking at me too. In those golden eyes, there wasn't a hint of fear toward death. That look, the 25-year-old young man who died on my operating table looked at me exactly like that at the very end. It was an entrustment full of hope. But I lost his life. Stop shaking, Luochuan. I gritted my teeth and told myself, you're here to save a life, not to wait for death. I looked up, with an unprecedentedly cold gaze. Get the things ready. We operate immediately. The efficiency of the fox pack was astonishing. Qiqiu quickly led some foxes to set up a giant stone pot, filled with crystal-clear spring water, boiling vigorously. A few nimble little foxes brought over a pile of sharpened stone shards in their mouths. Extremely sharp. Those stone shards were made of a very special material. Their sharp edges gleamed with a cold light, no less sharp than my scalpel. I threw all the stone shards and forceps into the boiling water, boiling them thoroughly. As a doctor, I looked at Qiqiu. You lead them and hold him down tight. Absolutely. Under no circumstances, let him move. Otherwise, one slip of this blade, and he's truly beyond saving. Qiqiu nodded firmly, pressing his entire body weight onto Bai Chen's hips. Several other large foxes also pinned down his limbs. It's going to hurt a lot. Try to endure it. Bai Chen gently closed his eyes, as if in response. When I picked up the piping hot stone shard, the moment I felt the flesh, my hands uselessly started shaking again. The phantom voices crashed over me like a tidal wave. You quack, give me back my son's life. You don't deserve to wear that white coat. My vision started to blur. The white fox's blood seemed to morph into the unstoppable red pool on the operating table that day. Miracle doctor, miracle doctor. Huang Da's anxious voice rang in my ears. He had found it from who knows where. A stalk of grass, emitting a faint blue light, and shoved it right under my nose. A bone-chillingly cool scent shot straight into my lungs, like a bucket of ice water poured over my head, instantly dispelling the chaotic, nightmarish voices. I snapped back to reality, once again facing Bai Chen's quietly waiting golden eyes. He didn't say anything, but he was waiting for me. Grandma used to say, people like me were born for this profession. As long as the mind is steady, the hands will be steady. Why didn't I believe in myself? I closed my eyes, suppressing all the fear and guilt deep into my heart. When I opened my eyes, the world had become clear. My hands were finally steady. I made the cut. The motion was decisive and clean. Opening it up, the necrotic tissue had already fibrosed. Bai Chen let out a low, guttural roar, full of restraint. His entire body convulsed violently. 𝐂𝐸𝐤 and the others held him down for dear life, their claws gouging deep marks into the ground. Dark purple blood mixed with black smoke spewed out. I didn't hesitate at all, with unprecedented, intense focus. I was drenched in sweat dripping down my nose. Huang Da nimbly used a dry cloth to wipe the sweat for me. Finally, my stone shard touched a hard foreign object. Found it, I used 2 long stone shards as makeshift forceps, carefully sliding them deep into the wound, clamping tightly onto the edge of the black scale. The scale seemed alive, still vibrating slightly within Bai Chen's flesh. "Hold him down tight," I shouted, using all my strength to yank it upward. A palm-sized black scale was ripped out by me. The moment the scale left his body, a thick, viscous black smoke poured out wildly, then gradually dissipated under the light of the glowing moss. I didn't dare stop. I immediately took the boiled herbal water and continuously flushed the wound, then used a small stone shard to scrape away every last bit of rotting flesh, until the blood flowing from the wound turned from dark purple to bright red. Only then did I feel the air in my lungs start circulating again. "Water, quick! Give me some water," I yelled. Bai Chen's breathing was already very weak. It was a sign of shock from blood loss and pain. The most crucial step had arrived: suturing. This wound was too large. It couldn't heal just with ointment, but I didn't have a needle and thread suitable for fox skin. I was so anxious I broke into a cold sweat, my palms drenched. Right at that moment, Qingyi, who had been watching one of her tails, suddenly emitted a silver light. Then, an incredibly fine silver hair detached itself, floated in the air, and transformed into a suturing needle, threaded with a glowing silver line. "Use this." Qingyi's voice was a bit weak. "This is my life source hair. It can mend all things and lock in life force." I was stunned. How much cultivation effort must it take to produce something like this? This 3-tailed fox. To save her son, she truly bet her entire fortune and life on me. I didn't hesitate, and took the silver needle, which felt warm as jade. This was the most miraculous suturing in my entire career. The needle gently pierced through Bai Chen's flesh. The silver thread wove through the wound, as if carrying some sort of healing melody. I sutured slowly and carefully. The spacing of each stitch was perfectly tight. When I tied the final knot, I collapsed onto the ground, utterly exhausted, panting heavily. I felt like my soul had been drained. The surgery was a success. I looked at Bai Chen, sleeping soundly on the stone slab. His breathing, though still light, had stabilized. His pale nose had regained its pinkish hue. He survived. The entire cave was dead silent. Hundreds of foxes maintained their postures, staring blankly at this scene. The next second, 𝐃𝐸𝐤 stepped forward and lowered his majestic head, gently and tenderly nuzzling my cheek. His fur was soft, carrying a crisp, refreshing scent. It felt incredibly warm. Next was second brother, the guy who wanted to eat me earlier, now walking dejectedly up to me, bowing his head deeply, as if apologizing for his earlier rudeness. After that, all the foxes in the cave bowed their heads toward me in unison. It was a silent thank you, but it carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. I sat on the cold ground, looking at my blood-stained hands, and the silver needle still glowing. I suddenly burst out laughing, then crying. Tears just kept falling. I saved him. "Lu Xuan, you're still a doctor. You can still save people. No, you can still save lives." I stayed in the fox cave for 3 days. These 3 days passed, even more comfortably than when I was a chief doctor in the city. When thirsty, there was monkey wine. Who knows where the foxes got it? Sweet, with a pretty strong aftertaste. When hungry, there was fragrant roasted meat, and all sorts of wild fruits I didn't know the names of. Crisp and juicy. My sleeping spot was lined with a thick layer of dry grass covered with an unnamed animal pelt. Incredibly soft. Lying on it was so plush. Absolutely comfortable. I thought to myself, this isn't suffering at all. This is clearly stepping into the animal version of a Hilton presidential suite. Bai Chen's constitution was extraordinarily strong. By the morning of the 3rd day, his leg, which had that deep, gaping wound, could already twitch and move slowly. His snow-white fur had regained its glossy sheen. Aside from the thin silver scar where the stitches were, you could hardly tell that just a few days ago, he was hovering on the brink of life and death. He walked up to me, his golden eyes no longer showing the pain from before. Only warm gratitude remained. "Thank you, human miracle doctor." Bai Chen spoke. His voice was clear and pleasant, like a mountain spring. I was looking down, organizing my medical kit, and replied without looking up. No need to be polite, it's just a doctor's job. After saying that, even I froze. After resigning and returning to my hometown, I thought that for the rest of my life, I would never say the words, a doctor's job, again. Yet I said it so fluently. They also treated me more politely, no longer giving me that look like they were always ready to treat me as a snack. We are a branch of the Fox clan from Qingqiu Mountain, named 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐭𝐨𝐫. We've guarded this forest for hundreds of years, and that black eagle, 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐫𝐢, is our sworn enemy who always wants to seize this land. I listened, dumbfounded, feeling like I hadn't just crossed boundaries, but also conveniently became a live audience member for strange tales from a Chinese studio. Before I left, Qingyi called me back. She handed me a long, fiery red leaf. Within the leaf, streams of light flowed like an unburnable flame. This is the crimson flame herb. Not only can it cure 100 poisons, it can also ward off evil. I was just about to decline. Qingyi, with her emerald eyes, looked at me deeply. Take it, Luixuan. You have a pure spiritual aura. In these wild mountains, it's easy to attract unclean things that shouldn't be attracted. Carry it to protect yourself. My heart skipped a beat. Pure spiritual aura? How come I didn't know I had this metaphysical constitution? But before I could ask for details, Qingyi had already turned and walked back deep into the cave, leaving behind only a crisp agarwood scent. Qichu volunteered to take me home. The giant red fox, over 2 meters tall, walked beside me. The oppressive presence was incredibly strong. Any wild animals passing by in the forest had to take a detour. When we reached the old locust tree at the edge of the village, Qichu stopped. In the future, if you want to find me, just face this tree and call Qichu 3 times. I'll hear it. I nodded. Looking at his massive, fluffy head, I couldn't resist reaching out to pet it. It felt amazing. Qichu wagged his tail goofily, thought for a moment, then added, "My oldest brother is named Bai Chen, my second brother is Qi. My mom, you can just call her Qingyi." The corner of my mouth twitched. Your naming conventions are way too casual. Qichu didn't get my joke, just smacked his lips, showing off his white teeth, and smiled brightly. When I returned to the little cabin in the woods, it was just dawn. My grandma had just pushed open the door, getting ready to fetch tools from the shed. As soon as she looked up, she froze in place. "This greeting is quite grand." Grandma narrowed her eyes. There wasn't a hint of surprise in her voice. I, on the other hand, almost fell flat on my butt. Oh my God, my clean courtyard had now turned into a mountain produce market. At the base of the wall were 3 plump pheasants, a wild boar leg weighing at least a few dozen pounds. There were also 2 neatly processed bundles of rare medicinal herbs. Next to the millstone was a basket of juicy wild fruits. You could smell their sweet fragrance from far away. There was even an unnamed mountain bird, flapping its wings, perched neatly on the windowsill, and a string of sparkling colored stones. "Your friends are really generous." Grandma pointed at the courtyard wall and laughed. I followed her gaze. The sense of luxury exploded. Qichu's giant red head was resting on the courtyard wall, his big, round emerald eyes blinking, looking at Grandma like a giant plush toy that hadn't been hidden well enough. I quickly ran over, on one hand trying to push Qichu's big head down, on the other awkwardly explaining to her, this is a distant relative friend of mine from the mountains. These things are the rent they're paying us." Qichu, being pushed by me, let out a coo and shrank his neck back. Grandma put down the sickle in her hand, walked over to the pile of produce, picked up an apple, wiped it, and took a bite. "Not bad. Your friend is very sensible. This fruit is really sweet." I watched Qichu look back every 3 steps as he disappeared into the forest. The tension in my heart finally eased a bit. Grandma walked over, brushed off a fox hair stuck to my shoulder. "Since you're back, just stay put. The neighbors in the mountains might have a lot of rules, but they're easier to live with than city folks." A certain lingering trauma in my heart seemed to fade away significantly at this moment. "Xuan, you've figured things out these past few days, haven't you?" I looked into Grandma's wise, all-seeing eyes and nodded firmly. "Yes, I've figured it out. I don't necessarily have to save people on an operating table in the city. As long as I can hold a scalpel and save a life, then right here in this little cabin, I am still a doctor." Life seemed to return to its proper track. Every day I dried herbs in the yard with Grandma, occasionally went to town to buy some supplies. It's just that my yard was getting livelier by the day. Today, there was a basket outside the door, full of red fruits still covered in dew. Tomorrow, there'd be 2 top-grade wild mountain ginsengs on the windowsill. No need to ask, they were all gifts from my furry friends behind the mountain. That kid Huangda would occasionally bring his wife to visit me. The three little meatballs could already roll all over the place, constantly clinging to my legs, melting my heart. My old roommate from the obstetrics department called me again. "Are you coming back or what?" The new intern in our department suturing wounds, hands shaking like they have Parkinson's. I'm going crazy. I listened to the complaints on the phone, stepped out into the yard, looking at the creatures in the garden, and the misty mountains in the distance. I smiled. I'm not coming back. Why? Are you really planning to cultivate immortality in the countryside? I've found new patients here. New patients? Your village clinic probably doesn't even have an ECG machine. I smiled mysteriously. My patients aren't what you think. Hanging up the phone, I took a deep breath, feeling the air was so fresh. Right then, the courtyard door was scratched lightly twice. I went to open the door. A soaking wet little otter was clutching its injured leg, looking at me pitifully. "Doctor, my leg got pinched by a crab. It hurt so much its voice was tiny and carried a hint of gloomy, cold energy." I looked down. Around the wound, sure enough, there was a faint wisp of black smoke. "Come in. Let me clean that wound for you. And get rid of this dark energy while I'm at it." My rural clinic was open for business again today. Life went on in this magical rhythm. Day by day, my patients increased. There was a silly badger with a broken leg who got slapped unconscious by 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐭𝐤 and carried straight here. There was a little wild boar foaming at the mouth from eating the wrong mushrooms, chased all the way to my door by its mother, almost knocking down my wall. There was also a depressed nightingale, singing sad love songs outside my window every day, so loud it gave me a headache. The main content was listening to me complain about medical disputes at my old hospital. Unexpectedly, a few days later, it was cured. It even wanted to set me up on a date with another very pretty nightingale. "Hurry, hurry, doesn't she look pretty?" "Thanks, but I'll pass." "No need. Are you sure you won't consider it?" My medical skills, through word of mouth, became the gold standard in these mountains. Not just 𝐶hichu and Huangda, my reputation even spread to the neighboring mountain. One night, I was woken up by a violent tremor. I thought it was an earthquake. I rushed out to the yard to check. Oh my God, a black bear the size of a small truck had its paws on my courtyard wall, poking its head in to look around. Beside it was a monkey, scratching its ears and cheeks in anxiety. Seeing me come out, the monkey screeched, pointing at the black bear's mouth. Enduring immense psychological pressure, I stepped forward. The moment the black bear opened its mouth, the stench hit me so hard I almost passed out. Good Lord, this isn't a black bear. This is 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐿. Its teeth were rotted down to the roots. There were even human candy wrappers stuck between its teeth. "How much candy did you steal from kids?" 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐿 let out a wronged growl, its massive body shrinking back. "You need a tooth extraction. And not just one," I said seriously. 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐿 trembled. A look of sheer terror appeared on its giant bare face. "Human," I sighed. I had no choice but to ask 𝐶hichu for help. I called out toward the old locust tree. A red blur instantly dashed over. "Hey human, you looking for me?" I explained 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐿's situation. 𝐶hichu burst out laughing. "This guy is such a glutton. Serves him right." He was very enthusiastic. He jumped right in. He brought me the tools. 2 giant stone pliers, polished to a shine. I looked at the pliers, which were bigger than my thigh. I thought for a moment. In the end, I went with the simplest, most brutal method. I had 𝐶hichu and a few other strong foxes hold 𝐒𝐩𝐿 down tight. I tied one end of a sturdy vine to the bad tooth and the other to 𝐶hichu's big tail. On my command, run forward. Listen for my signal. Run forward. 1, 2, 3. Run. All I heard was a blood-curdling scream. A giant, bloody, rotten tooth went flying. 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐿 rolled on the ground in agony. The force of the pull sent 𝐶hichu stumbling. I picked up the tooth and breathed a sigh of relief. That entire night, the forest behind the mountain echoed with 𝐒𝐩𝐿's agonizing cries and the gleeful laughter of the fox pack. After I pulled all his bad teeth and used my spiritual energy to clean his gums, 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐿 was completely flattened on the ground. He'd lost the will to live. Remember this. No more stealing candy. 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐿, with tears in his eyes, weakly nodded his head. From then on, 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐿 became another one of my bodyguards. Every day, right on time, he'd bring me a jar of the freshest, most delicious honey. He also kept an eye on the mischievous little monkeys, making sure they didn't come and wreck my vegetable garden. My life was more leisurely than a retired official's, until an uninvited guest arrived. That day, I was applying a poultice to a wild rabbit with a sprained leg. The courtyard gate was kicked open. A middle-aged man in a black Taoist robe stood in the doorway. He wore a pair of glasses. He pushed them up the bridge of his nose. His cold eyes stared right at me, like a venomous snake sizing up its prey. "You must be Lu Chuan," I frowned. "Who are you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked me up and down. The corner of his mouth lifted into a disturbing smirk. Just as I thought. "This physique carries spiritual energy," my scout told me. He smelled the scent of 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐚𝐬 in the mountains. "It seems you were the one who treated him." He hadn't even stepped inside yet, but I could already feel a thick wave of sinister, deathly energy. It washed over me. Who I am isn't important. What's important is that a doctor like you, Lu Chuan, has such skill. As it happens, I have a major task that requires your help. You'll have to come with me. What if I refuse? I had the right to refuse. My palms were already slick with cold sweat. The man let out a cold laugh, his body unmoving. But the black paper talisman in his hand fluttered without any wind. "It's not up to you to decide." As he spoke, the various herbs drying in my shop turned black at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, they crumbled into ash. The hair on my neck stood on end. This kind of power was beyond my comprehension. "What did you do?" I asked in a stern voice. "Just cleaning up some trash." He looked at me, his greedy eyes completely undisguised. Two henchmen in black suits stepped out from behind him. You could tell they were thugs at a glance. I instinctively backed away. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. Just as the two men in black were about to grab me, a golden blur shot out from the corner. It sank its teeth into one of the men's wrists. It was Huang Da. He bared his teeth, the fur on his back standing on end. "Damn pest." The man casually waved his hand. A blast of black energy sent Huang Da flying. He coughed up a mouthful of blood. My eyes turned bloodshot. "It seems your friends can't protect you." The man closed in, step by step. Just then, the ground began to tremble slightly. An oppressive aura, heavy as a mountain, flooded in from the doorway. He Yan's massive body blocked the entire gate. A low growl rumbled from his throat. His usually gentle eyes were now filled with ferocity. On the courtyard walls, dozens of figures appeared in a flash. 𝐂𝐸𝐿, and an entire pack of foxes with sharp, piercing eyes. They all stared down the man, their sharp claws glinting. In the sky, hundreds of birds circled overhead. The one leading them was that same songbird. Its clear song carried an unmistakable warning. Even the little salamander, who had just recovered, crawled out of its water basin. It bared its teeth and glared at the man. The man and his goons were completely stunned. His hand, which had been so steady, trembled slightly. He looked at the bear, who was over 2 meters tall, drilling right behind me. His face instantly turned pale. I stepped forward. I could feel the once peaceful atmosphere in the courtyard had changed. A thick, deathly aura now filled the air. But I wasn't afraid. I looked at the man in the black robe and said, word by word, "I told you I'm not going. And it seems my friends don't welcome you here either." The bodyguard in the suit gulped. He looked at the hundreds of glowing green eyes and blazing red eyes all around them. His legs were shaking uncontrollably. "Dr. Lu is there. Is there something we can talk about?" I smiled. This feeling was absolutely incredible. "So now you want to talk things over?" I looked at the figures standing protectively in front of me. I felt much more secure. I looked at the man in the black robe. I didn't say another word. The look in that man's eyes as he left is something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. He pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses and gave a sinister smile. That look sent a chill down my spine. "Get ready. Sooner or later, you'll come looking for me." He left with that cryptic remark. Leading his 2 half-dead henchmen, he retreated and vanished deep into the forest. I watched his retreating back. A sense of unease settled in my heart. I had a feeling this wasn't over. Grandma walked over, still holding a half-eaten sweet potato. She casually patted my shoulder. "Don't pay any mind to that lunatic. He's got a terrible reputation around here. Calls himself Taoist Master Qingshu or something. Never does a single decent thing." I forced a smile. "Grandma, you're taking this awfully calmly. After that storm, my little courtyard became completely famous. I thought that after sending that big shot away, I could finally have a few days of peace. I never expected this was only the beginning." Early the next morning, Huang Da's wife came again. This time, it wasn't to repay a debt of gratitude. She was cradling a round object in her arms. Wiping her tears, she looked worried. "Divine doctor, please, save my neighbor. He's hurt himself." I looked down. I was speechless. It was a hedgehog, rolled up into a ball. Its whole body was covered in sharp quills. But this time, it was stuck with colorful plastic bags and a mess of broken glass shards. Did he just go for a roll in the garbage dump? Huang Da's wife sobbed. He was curious and crawled into a chip bag left by a tourist, but then he couldn't get out. When he was rolling around, all this junk got stuck in his skin. Now, the wounds are festering. I sighed, resigned, and took out my medical kit. With the experience from Bayan's surgery, this simple procedure to clean the wound was a piece of cake for me. A piece of cake. Although, from time to time, I'd still shudder remembering the look in Daoist Master Ching Shu's eyes. But when I circulated my spiritual energy, my mind would calm down. After successfully saving the hedgehog neighbor, my reputation in this forest exploded. My house officially became a clinic for supernatural creatures. Today, it was a black bear with a lame leg. He lugged over a giant mountain ginseng to trade for a cast. Tomorrow, it was a lovesick owl who'd lost the will to live. He kept trying to smash his head against a tree. His roommate brought him in. The day after was even weirder. A snake spirit who had cultivated for several hundred years got greedy and swallowed a whole dead pig. Turns out, the pig's stomach was full of undigested rocks. He choked himself until his eyes rolled back in his head. Every day, when I opened my eyes, there was already a long line at my door. Creatures that flew in the sky, creatures that ran on the ground, and creatures that burrowed in the earth. The variety was astounding. It was like the set of Animal Planet. At first, Grandma was shocked, but then she got used to it. She even built a few sheds in the courtyard to serve as temporary waiting rooms for these patients. Chuan, my boy, it looks like you've found a second spring for your career. Before, you were saving people in the city. Now you're back in the countryside, saving immortals. Grandma said this while feeding a magpie with a broken wing, some millet, sighing with emotion. My face twitched. I complained silently to myself. A top-tier hospital surgeon with a limitless future was now performing enemas on snake spirits. This career change made me want to go get a veterinary license. Just when I thought life would just go on, in this chaotic way, Bayan and 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐿 came again. But this time, they weren't in their original forms. The moment the courtyard gate was pushed open, I was completely stunned. The man in front wore a long white robe. His hair was tied back casually at the nape of his neck. His face was more handsome than any big star on TV. Especially those golden eyes. They were both cold and full of charisma. It was Bayan. Behind him was a robust man dressed in fiery red. He had big, round eyes. His body was rippling with muscles. You could tell he was the type who could kill an ox with one punch. That was 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐿. I stood there, dumbfounded, still holding the soft tube used for the snake spirit's enema. You guys transformed? 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐿 laughed heartily. Isn't it easier to talk like this? This way, we look more human. Bayan greeted me politely. His every move and gesture showed he was nothing like us mortals. Divine Dr. Lu, have you been well? I put the tube down. I wiped my sweat. Just call me Lu Xuan. So which great immortal is it this time? Ate too much or tried to smash their head against a tree again? His expression turned grim. The once noisy courtyard instantly fell silent. The small animals were all too scared to make a peep. It's not that, Lu Chuan. The mountain god has disappeared. I froze. Mountain god? There's really a mountain god in these mountains? 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐿 stepped closer. His voice was as deep as rolling thunder. Not! Just disappeared. The mountain's spiritual ley line is about to break. He pointed toward the back mountain. I followed his gaze. The once lush and green mountain was now shrouded in a layer of unsettling gray mist. That aura, it was exactly like the sinister, deathly energy from Taoist Master Ching Shu. Exactly. Ever since the mountain god vanished, the deathly energy began to spread like crazy. Bayan frowned. Many creatures have started to go mad because the ley line is drying up. If the ley line breaks completely, every living being on this mountain, including the village, I'm afraid, will be consumed by the deathly energy. My heart skipped a beat. The image of Ching Shu and his demonic smile flashed in my mind. It was that guy in the black robe, wasn't it? I asked. Most likely. Bayan nodded. He's been coveting the mountain god's power for a long time. 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐿 looked at me with a hint of worry. We've searched everywhere. Only the spiritual energy on you can confront and purify that deathly energy. Divine Doctor, we have to rescue the mountain god. We have to save the backbone of this mountain. I fell silent. To be honest, I was scared. I'm just a guy who holds a scalpel. Now I have to go save an entire ecosystem? This leap, it's like going from general surgery straight to geological disaster relief. I just wanted to be a lazy bum in the village. Spending my days patching up and feeding these furry little creatures was enough for me. But when I turned my head and looked into the courtyard, the little animals were looking at me with such trust. The magpie with the mended wing, the black bear with the lame leg, and all three of Huangda's kits were wrapped around my legs. If the ley line really broke, they would all die. If the ley line really broke, I remembered how after that medical accident, it was these creatures that made me pick up a scalpel again. They made me feel like I wasn't useless. The creatures of the mountain saved my heart. I have to save their lives. All right. Stop looking at me like that. I sighed, resigned, and went inside. I'll go pack my things. I went back into the house, quickly packed my medical kit. I packed the special antiseptic alcohol mixed with my spiritual energy. It was a kind of magic-breaking potion I'd concocted these past few days. I carefully took out the life-bound fur that 𝐒𝐲𝐿 had given me, the very same silver needle. I pinned it to my collar. Finally, I tucked the 𝐂𝐨𝐿 herb into my shirt. I felt a wave of warmth immediately protecting my heart. To hell with some Taoist master. My scalpel can save lives, and it can also make him taste some pain. I slung the medical kit over my shoulder. I walked out of the room and saw 𝐒𝐲𝐿 and 𝐂𝐸𝐲 standing side by side in the courtyard. Let's go. I took a deep breath. My voice was firmer than it had ever been. Let's go save that mountain god. 𝐒𝐲𝐿 looked at me. A flicker of gratitude appeared in his golden eyes. Just the fact that you're willing to go is our greatest hope. I just hope that mountain god isn't too heavy. This small body of mine won't be able to carry him. Someone burst out laughing. 𝐂𝐸𝐲 heartily lifted a large rake from the ground. That's what I'm here for. The setting sun stretched our shadows long. I turned back to look at Grandma. She was standing at the door, waving to me. "Chuan, be back soon for dinner. I'm making you pork rib soup tonight." I waved, then turned and followed the two figures, one red and one white. We strode toward the deep mountain shrouded in gray mist. The path to the abandoned temple on the back mountain was harder to travel than I'd imagined. It was an overgrown path deep in the old forest. The weeds were taller than a person. There was nowhere to set your feet. I carried my medical kit. With every step, I had to use a stick to probe the path ahead. I was afraid of stepping on something I shouldn't. The deeper we went, the darker it got. The sky was overcast, as if it were about to rain. The air exuded a cold chill. It was a damp cold that seeped into my bones. I couldn't help but shiver. The surrounding trees grew in bizarre shapes. Their branches and leaves swayed. They looked like a horde of demons reaching out in the darkness. It wasn't much different. Along the way, I saw several dead, wild rabbits and pheasants. A faint layer of black energy was wrapped around these small animals. Their flesh had turned black and was rotting. It was the mark of corrosion from the deathly energy. My heart grew heavier. The pollution in this mountain was more severe than I'd thought. After walking for nearly 2 hours, a dilapidated temple finally came into view. This was the abandoned temple of the back mountain. More than half of the walls had collapsed. The windows had long since rotted away. The statue of the god was covered in thick cobwebs. Its clay head lay tilted on the ground. Half of its face was buried in the weeds. Those empty eyes looked even more demonic in the beam of my flashlight. It was truly unsettling. This eerie place was completely silent. I couldn't even hear the chirping of insects. The silence was unnerving. I stepped into the temple. I walked around the ruined statue. At the base of the wall behind the statue, I found a rusty iron door. It was hidden behind weeds and a pile of rubble. The iron door wasn't locked. I gave it a push. A creak echoed far into the deathly silent temple. A thick, damp, earthy smell and a foul stench assaulted my nose. It made me want to gag. Behind the door was a pitch-black secret passage. It was so narrow that only one person could squeeze through. "I'll go down and take a look. You guys stay up here and cover me," I said to 𝐒𝐲𝐿 and 𝐂𝐸𝐲 behind me. 𝐂𝐸𝐲 anxiously scratched his head. "Divine Doctor, it's too dangerous down there. How about I go first?" I waved him off. "With your build, if you get stuck in the tunnel, I'll have to waste energy pulling you out. It'll just be more trouble. Be careful. If you see anything wrong, come back up immediately." The stone steps in the passage were damp and slippery, covered in dark green moss. Stepping on them was like stepping on soap. In the cave, there was a huge pool of water. Countless sharp stalactites hung from the ceiling, dripping water, drop by drop. The water in the pool was pitch black. It constantly bubbled with black foam, emitting a thick, foul stench. Waves of deathly energy rose from the pool, filling the entire space. It made my chest tighten, making it hard to breathe. Right in the middle of the pool stood a 1,000-year-old tree, completely withered. Its trunk was covered in blood-red talismans. They fluttered in the gloomy wind, looking very strange. And on that withered tree were 4 massive iron chains. They bound a person tightly. That person had white hair that reached their ankles. Their limbs were pierced by the iron chains. Their whole body was nailed to the tree trunk. The person's head was bowed. I couldn't see their face clearly, but they didn't look like one of those evil spirits. Instead, they looked like a righteous deity who had met with great disaster, completely out of place amidst the surrounding deathly energy. Every time the iron chains rattled, it was accompanied by a heart-wrenching groan. My heart clenched. This must be the deity in distress that Bai Yan mentioned. I took a few steps closer. I wanted to get a better look at their wounds. As if sensing something, the person slowly lifted their head. Their eyes looked very gentle, but they were filled with bloodshot veins from the pain. Suddenly, I stepped on something hard under my foot. I looked down. It was a wooden tablet lying in the mud. I picked it up and wiped off the mud. The flashlight beam hit it. 2 characters were carved on it. Cheng Shu. My pupils contracted. My heart nearly stopped. Of course, it was that damn Taoist priest. Taoist Master Cheng Shu. This damn priest was obviously hatching a huge conspiracy here. I knew it that day in the courtyard. The look he gave me had ill intentions. Just as I was staring blankly at the tablet, a cold, skin-crawling laugh suddenly echoed from behind me. I thought I could lure those 2 foxes. I never expected you to be the one to walk into my trap first. A little doctor. I whipped my head around. The flashlight in my hand almost flew out. In the darkness, a figure in a black Taoist robe slowly emerged. It was the same man I had met at Grandma's house. He looked like a venerable immortal, Taoist Master Cheng Shu. Only now, his self-righteous facade was completely gone. His face was filled with ferocity and greed under the flashlight's beam. He laughed sinisterly. It made my hair stand on end. "It's you." I gripped the medical kit in my hand. My heart sank to the bottom. "What did you do to the mountain god?" "What did I do?" Taoist Master Cheng Shu narrowed his eyes. He looked at the person bound in the middle of the pool. His eyes were filled with a fanatical fervor. "I am helping him achieve liberation. The ley line of this entire mountain is the spiritual energy of all its creatures. He has occupied it for so many years. It's about time it was my turn. This is blatant robbery, and you're dressing it up with such fancy words. For a Taoist master, you're utterly shameless. Brat, what do you know?" He acted as if he'd heard the world's biggest joke. His voice became shrill. "I have cultivated the Tao for 200 years. I've exhausted my potential, yet I can never break through. On what grounds was he born a god? Able to monopolize the worship of the entire mountain? Enjoying a limitless lifespan?" He pointed at the person in the middle of the pool. Out of anger and greed, his body twitched uncontrollably. "If the heavenly Tao is unjust, then I will take it for myself. I spent 100 years of my cultivation to set up this spirit-devouring array, drawing the deathly energy of the underworld to slowly wear down his body, to sever his life force. Once I've completely drained him, I will obtain an immortal body. From now on, this entire mountain will obey me." After hearing this, a cold sweat ran down my spine. This old priest was truly insane. His heart was black. "So the wound on Brother Bai Yan was also your doing? That white fox?" He casually flicked his fingernails. "He was unlucky enough to run into the spirit-melting trap I gave to the Eagle King. The fact that he didn't die means he's got a tough life. I thought he was a goner for sure. I never expected a mere mortal like you to heal him." He looked at me, his eyes suddenly like he was staring at a rare treasure. He even licked his dry, chapped lips. "I'm really curious. If I take you back and cut you open to see, perhaps my plan could be accelerated by a few years." As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand. Several streams of strange black mist flew out from his sleeve. In midair, they transformed into several sharp arrows. They shot straight for my heart. I was so scared, my soul nearly left my body. All I could think was, "Help! This time I'm really going to be turned into a pincushion." In that moment of crisis, without thinking, I grabbed the fur pinned to my collar. The protective talisman made from Bai Yan's life-bound fur. I focused my thoughts. The protective fur seemed to sense my intent. A silver light flowed through it. It transformed back into a long, thin silver needle. "Save me!" I squeezed my eyes shut and yelled. I threw the silver needle. A silver light flashed. The silver needle rapidly expanded in the air. It formed a translucent silver shield, standing firmly in front of me. The black arrows struck the shield. They made a series of ear-piercing, scraping sounds. Finally, they went up in a puff of black smoke and vanished. Taoist Master Qingshu's face darkened. He snorted coldly. Something that old fox left behind. Let's see how many times it can protect you. At this point, I was no longer afraid. In that instant, my professional instincts overwhelmed my fear. I stared at the giant array behind him. I looked at the pool and the tree that were constantly emitting black smoke. I looked at the iron chains that were constantly emitting black smoke. Although I didn't understand arrays, I could see that the energy there was the most chaotic, like a poorly stitched wound. That was the only weak point. I tightened my grip on the scalpel in my medical kit. My heart was pounding, but my hand was steady, just a remnant of an aura. "And you think you can stop me?" Qingshu laughed coldly. The pressure from his hand immediately bore down. The silver shield formed by Bai Yan's fur emitted a piercing screech. "It's about to break." I was frantic. "This thing won't last much longer. What do I do? What do I do?" I didn't have time to just wait for death. My eyes quickly scanned the cave. Finally, they landed on the center of the pool, on the 1,000-year-old withered tree. Although I don't understand anything about metaphysics or arrays, as a doctor I could immediately see that it was the center of the entire lesion. The withered tree was the eye of the array. If I could just remove this malignant tumor, maybe I could turn the tables. A crazy idea flashed through my mind. I took the scalpel from my medical kit, along with the silver needle Bai Yan had given me. The moment he broke the shield, I didn't retreat. Instead, I ducked and charged forward. Qingshu clearly didn't expect that an unarmed mortal like me would dare to attack him head-on. He was stunned for a moment. In that brief instant, I had already rushed to the edge of the pool. I leaped onto the withered tree. The cold from the exposed roots seeped into the soles of my feet. It was so cold, I shuddered. The deathly energy in the pool, like flies smelling blood, swarmed madly towards me. I felt the blood in my body was about to freeze solid. Luckily, the Qiyan herb in my shirt radiated a wave of warmth, temporarily driving away the cold. It restored strength to my stiff limbs. I didn't dare to stop. My hands and feet numb with cold, I climbed up the tree trunk. I reached the person bound by the chains, piercing through their collarbones. Up close, I could see that what pierced their body wasn't ordinary iron chains. They were iron chains carved with writhing black runes. Those chains were like parasites. They were constantly siphoning the golden divine power from the person's body, channeling it down the tree and into the ground. This was the main point of hemorrhage. "How dare you!" Qingshu's furious roar echoed from behind me. He had reacted. Several streams of black energy formed sharp swords and shot toward my back. I had no time to dodge. I could only grit my teeth and jam the scalpel in my hand into the joint between the iron chain and the tree trunk. The pure spiritual energy in my body poured into the scalpel's tip. It flowed in through the tip of the blade, but the black energy swords had already pierced my shoulder and back. The intense pain made my vision go black. A sweet, metallic taste rose in my throat, but I refused to let go. In this moment, it was like I was back in that surgery that haunted me. The piercing alarm of the medical monitors rang in my ears. That day, I couldn't save that young man, but today, I absolutely cannot let go again. I let out a roar. I grabbed the silver needle from my collar. I used it as a conduit, jamming it into the gap in the iron chain, using it like a needle for a reverse transfusion. A crisp, cracking sound echoed through the cave. The moment the iron chain snapped, a brilliant golden light exploded. It instantly illuminated the entire gloomy cave. The streams of black energy vanished the moment they touched the golden light, hissing as they disappeared. "Ah, my path to immortality!" Qingshu screamed in agony. Half of his body, caught in the golden light, was smoking with black fumes. He saw that all was lost. Gritting his teeth, he abandoned his path to immortality. His entire body turned into a blur. He shot into a secret passage deep in the cave and disappeared. The danger was finally over. The tense string inside me snapped completely. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. My legs gave out, my hands slipped from the tree trunk, and my whole body fell. The cold water and hard rocks that I expected never came. I fell into a warm and steady embrace. I struggled to open my heavy eyelids. I saw an unbelievably handsome face. Those eyes radiated a gentle, divine light. It was the mountain god I had saved. He held me. A warm energy emanated from his body. It was rapidly healing the injuries inside my body. "Thank you, little divine doctor." He smiled at me. His voice was very pleasant. "I am the mountain god of this mountain." "My name is—" I smirked. I really wanted to act cool and reply, "Don't forget to send me a commendation banner," but my eyelids were too heavy. Everything went black. I completely passed out. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying on my familiar wooden bed. The afternoon sun streamed through the window crack. It fell warmly on my legs. Grandma was sitting by my bedside, holding a wet towel in her hand. She was intermittently wiping my face. "You're awake?" Grandma saw my eyes flutter. She finally let out a sigh of relief. "You silly boy. Your courage knows no bounds. You were in a coma for 3 days and 3 nights. I tried to push myself up, but I found my whole body ached. I didn't have an ounce of strength. Don't move. Don't move. Just lie still." Grandma quickly pushed my shoulders back down. That young man with 𝐒𝐸𝐢 said, "You're suffering from exhaustion and spiritual damage. You need to rest." The young man with 𝐒𝐸𝐢? My brain still wasn't working right. Ah, the one in the long white robe. He's very handsome, looks like a gentle scholar, and he knows quite a bit about medicine. Grandma pouted. Her expression was like someone who'd seen it all. "That's Bai Yan, the same white fox you saved. Although his wounds haven't fully healed, he brought over a lot of spiritual herbs and mushrooms. Said you're the savior of his entire clan. He insisted I make you drink it all." I thought to myself, Bai Yan didn't just bring herbs. He was afraid I'd just die, and then there'd be no one left to treat the little animals in the mountains. I lay on my pillow, staring blankly at the roof beams. What happened in the cave felt like a wild nightmare, but the dull ache in my back reminded me it was real. Lu Chuan, an unlucky guy who almost lost his medical license, actually managed to drive away that damn Taoist priest, Qing Shu, and saved a deity in the process. If I wrote this in my year-end report, the hospital director would probably send me to the psychiatric ward for an evaluation first. Oh, right. Grandma suddenly remembered something. She leaned in conspiratorially. A few days ago, that abandoned temple on the back mountain, Choi, was glowing with a brilliant golden light. All the villagers are saying the mountain god has returned. Now, the incense at that mountain temple is unbelievably popular. It's even brought more people to our door to kowtow. I smiled, gave a vague reply, and said no more. I stayed in bed at home for a whole week. I drank countless bowls of disgustingly bitter medicine. Only then could I get out of bed and walk around. During this time, my little courtyard was like a welfare center. Huang Da came every day. Each time he brought a jar of honey, saying it was to replenish my qi and blood. 𝐒𝐸𝐢 brought a pile of colorful stones. They sparkled and even glowed. He insisted they could improve my complexion. He told me to put them under my pillow. I looked at the pile of beauty stones that could give a person a crooked neck. The aesthetic sense of foxes is truly different from humans. The most ridiculous one was the snake spirit whose indigestion I had cured. She shyly presented me with a translucent snake skin. "Dr. Lu, this is the skin I just shed. You can make an undershirt out of it. It's impervious to blades and spears, and it can keep you cool." I looked at the cold, slimy skin. The corner of my mouth twitched. I thought, I never want to try this kind of bizarre fashion in my entire life. I accepted these strange thank you gifts with a wry smile. The little courtyard in the forest was lively every day. The yard wasn't just full of herbs, it was also full of fox kits and golden weasels running around. I was lying on a chair in the courtyard, sunbathing, cradling the Qi-Yan herb for warmth. A call I hadn't received in a long time came through. It was my best friend from the hospital, that talkative obstetrician. "Xuan, you're famous. Your case has been cleared. You're not responsible. Did you know?" His shouting made my eardrums hurt. I almost threw the phone away. I squinted and replied, "What's all the fuss about? I'm busy bonding with my little spirits here." "Bonding my ass. It's about your surgical accident from before. They've cleared it up." The voice on the other end was trembling with excitement. That patient's family were no good. They were trying to commit insurance fraud. Before the surgery, they gave the patient a banned drug from overseas. The forensic examiner reevaluated it. The patient's cause of death was heart failure due to drug interaction. It had nothing to do with your surgery. Now everyone who flamed you online has changed their tune. The hospital's website is flooded with apologies. The department head is nagging me every day, asking when you're coming back to the city. He even said he'd give you a bonus, and they've kept your position for you. I held the phone, stunned. The truth was out. I wasn't a murderer. I didn't kill that person. The nightmare that had weighed on my heart for so long finally vanished. I let out a long breath. I looked at the chaotic scene in the courtyard. 𝐃𝐨𝐜𝐿 was arm wrestling with a few wild boars in the backyard. He won and was howling triumphantly. The magpie whose wing I'd fixed was perched on the old scholar tree, singing off-key folk songs at the top of its lungs. There was no smell of disinfectant here, only the scent of grass and trees. I suddenly felt that the office full of surveillance cameras, the smell of disinfectant, and the endless disputes were so far away from me. I picked up the phone and typed a few words in reply. I'm not coming back. I found something more important here. The other end was silent for a long time. Finally, he just replied with a single, "Okay," accompanied by a giant thumbs-up emoji. I put the phone away and stretched long and hard. My whole body felt refreshed. Just then, a panting sound came from the courtyard gate. I looked up and burst out laughing. It was a panda, round and incredibly cute. It was clutching its stomach, whimpering at the door. It saw me come out. With teary eyes, it pointed to its belly, which was swollen like a ball. It had clearly overeaten. "Doctor, I think I got greedy again." I dusted off my hands and picked up the stethoscope beside me. The rescued deity transformed into a gentle breeze. It swirled around the courtyard, bringing with it a cool gust of wind. I looked at its round belly and said with a smile, "All right, first, let's rub your belly to help with digestion. Next patient."